Hey guys, back on Warhammer today. I'll be playing as the Skaven against the High Elves of Yvresse. Up front, a skirmishing line of Warlock Jezzails. Very accurate long-range weapon, devastating against monster units. Following close behind, we've got the Grey Seers, Prophets of the Horned Rat. Very potent magic users, along with the two flanking Warp Lightning Cannons and Jezzails you guys see right now. Any enemy army is going to have a very bad time trying to close the gap and get into melee combat against me. In the center, the Screaming Bell causes fear to any enemy who approaches and buffs all Skaven in an area of effect around it. That's pushed by a team of Rat Ogres, the muscle-bound brutes of Clan Molder. Gutter Runners following up right now, the Assassins of Clan Eshin with Warpstone Daggers. They can deploy and hide anywhere. Pretty decent melee stats as well. And the really crappy looking Stormvermin that are following up in the rear. Looking at the High Elf army, we've got the Yvressian Sea Guard that will make up the front line. They're a hybrid unit that uses spear and bow, have very long range and potent missiles, and very good melee combat stats as well. Griffon Riders following up closely behind. They cause fear and have a very powerful charge. Really awesome looking model, and they can also fly. On the flanks, we've got some Silver Helms, fast, well armored, and powerful charge bonus. They're going to be a threat to any Skaven army, as the Skaven lack any dedicated spears. Also got some repeater bolt throwers and spearmen following up in the rear. More spearmen and some more Silver Helms. So that'll round out the High Elf army. Let's get into the replay. We're going to get this replay popping with the Warp Lightning Cannons of Clan Scryer, along with the Grey Seers and the Jezzails in my front line. Their job is going to be to make the Elves hurt for every single inch of ground they cover to try to close the gap. Yvressian Sea Guard do have great range, and they have started firing, but you can already see the damage that my Warp Lightning Cannons are inflicting on these Sea Guard. They can do a lot of damage with their bows, but frankly they can't do the damage the Grey Seers and Jezzails can from such a distance. So I've already opened fire with a bunch of my artillery and my Grey Seers, and I'm going to have a pretty distinct range advantage in this game. I'm going to force this High Elf army to close the gap with me as quickly as possible. That's really not where the High Elves want to be. They normally have a very distinct range advantage, but already done a bunch of damage with my Warp Lightning Cannons. You got a good look at the Griffon Riders right there. They're going to be a threat to me for sure. The Silver Helms and the Griffon Riders are the biggest threats to me on the field. I'm not really worried about their infantry because I think that with my Rat Ogres and stuff I can handle that, but definitely a little bit scared of that cavalry. So as the High Elves are moving up now, I'm going to pull back my Warplock Jezzails, get them behind my army so they can start picking off the monsters, the Griffon Riders, and some of the cavalry as they charge in. But I'm going to let my Stormvermin take the charge here and spring an ambush with my Gutter Runners from Clan Eshin. Griffins are going to do a bunch of damage, and Silver Helms are going to do a bunch of damage on the charge, but Stormvermin are not expensive, and I'm going to counter-charge with some Rat Ogres. Should be able to do a lot of damage there and tie down a bunch of those cavalry units. And you can see I'm targeting some of his Silver Helms with my Warp Lightning Cannons and Grey Seers, doing not that much damage to the cavalry. They seem to be able to withstand that artillery fire pretty well, but the infantry has already taken a beating. Some of the Sea Guard, as you saw in the beginning, had already gone down to about 60 or 70 men, about half strength, really early on in the battle. So Griffon Riders moving up now. They're flying. Pretty cool flying animation. These units are not perfect. They are a little bit buggy, but they can actually be quite devastating off the charge. Unfortunately, High Elf player is going to forget to charge with them. He's going to kind of lose sight of them, lose micro here. I'm going to counter charge with Stormvermin, and he's not going to get the charge off there, which is definitely a big deal. Griffin's in the center here, tied down with some Stormvermins and some Rat Ogres. Not going to be an easy engagement for the Rat Ogres by any means. High Elves definitely winning in the center, but over on the flank, whereas Griffon Riders charged in and I counter-charged with my Rat Ogres and Clan Eshin Assassins, I absolutely butchered the Griffon Riders. You can see most of them are already dead over there. Rat Ogres are actually quite potent at counter-charging melee cavalry as well, so did quite well there. Most of the Griffon Riders dead on that flank, and that is a problem for the High Elves. Gojira really hasn't been trying to pull out and cycle charge with his Griffon Riders at all, which is definitely a mistake. Silver Helms and Griffon Riders both need to be cycle charged to really get their maximum effectiveness out. So his Sea Guard is holding right now, but against Rat Ogres and Plague Monks in the rear of his army, that is definitely going to be a problem for him. And a lot of his Griffon Riders are already down on the field so far. But Bounce Bar is still 50-50 at the moment. One of my Plague Monks just stabbed one of the Griffon Riders, killed them. So General is actually one of those Griffon Riders as well. Only a handful of them left. But Silver Helm's moving up now, about to get a rear charge into my flanking Plague Monks. that is going to be a problem for the Skaven of Clan Pestilence there. They're probably going to get destroyed right there, but still winning the engagement in the center at this point. Screaming Bell and Jezzail's on the flank, shooting in. I think that was actually a big reason why I killed a bunch of his Griffon Riders so early in the fight. Got a bunch of shots in there with my Jezzail's, and like I said, they are fantastic monster killing units, and will probably be so in Total War Warhammer as well. One Griffon Rider seemed to make it out of combat there. I think that actually might be his general, kind of running away from combat at the moment. But you can see a bunch of my Skaven in the center here have actually started breaking. Sea Guard have pushed through the middle, and my Plague Monks and some of my other units are routing from the field. But the Sea Guard, oh, the general's going to go down here. That is a big issue for the High Elves, especially with all my fear-causing units still in the field. And the Sea Guard are in a hugely blobby position right now, and you know what that means. Time to die! So I got a bunch of Grey Seers and a bunch of Warp Lightning Cannons about to turn and start shooting into that huge blob of Sea Guard. Oh my god. The entire formation is just going to get blown to smithereens, and with the death of the General and the fear-causing Plague Monks and that massive shot from the Grey Seers and Warp Lightning Cannon, the very high morale of Yvressian Sea Guard are now going to start routing from the field like crazy. Some very Skaven-friendly fire going on as well, but it doesn't really matter. I just routed a huge portion of his infantry and really just turned things in my favor. And that's the turning point in the battle. His gen goes down, get a huge shot with my Grey Seers into that really blobby formation. So definitely a mistake from Gojira there to get so blobby, but with all those fear stacks just stacking up, those morale penalties stacking up, it was too much for the High Elf army, and it was even until that point, and then the general went down, and most of his army just broke. So I actually stacked morale penalties really well right there, and that shot was just too much for the High Elf army to handle. So he has some archers and some repeater bolt throwers in the back here, but Rat Ogre's going to charge in, make short work of these archers. Have no hope against the intimidating Rat Ogres, and going to hunt them down, throw them into the air like ragdolls, and I think this bolt thrower is going to be pretty much the last hope for the High Elf army here. Everything else is drowning at this point, scaring them off with some Warp Lightning shots, but yeah, this battle is over. And it really came down to a couple key engagements. The Griffon Riders not getting their charge off against the Stormvermin on the High Elves' left flank was definitely a big issue, and losing the gen. If he had kept his general alive, his army probably would not have routed. Just keep your guys in a little bit, maybe not spaghetti formation, but certainly in a thinner formation than they were. Probably mitigate some of that damage from the Warp Lightning Cannons and from the Grey Seers. If he wasn't so blobby at the end there, I think that he would have been in a great shape to take this game. But oh my god, more friendly fire coming in. Not going to kill the whole unit. A lot of them are going to get up, but those assassins are going to get up, but definitely some friendly fire going on, which, like I said, very Skaven thing to do. It's how they play in the tabletop. It's how they are in the lore, how they seem to play in Call of Warhammer as well, and the Sundering. So, really fun battle. It was actually really close there until the end, but like I said, those morale stacks were just too much for the High Elf army, and I managed to get a bunch of kills with my Grey Seers and my Warplock Jezzails, and all across the board, my guys did pretty well. I mean, you don't really win with the regular Clan Rats or the Stormvermin with the Skaven in the Sundering, but the special units, the Grey Seers and the Rat Ogres and the Screaming Bell, all that stuff can stack up to make some really scary morale stacks going on, and it certainly was enough to send the High Elves running for the hills in this battle. So, hope you guys enjoyed the game, and I'll be bringing you some more Sundering and Call of Warhammer soon. See you guys next time.